Okay everyone, I promised you I'd make some videos to follow up our lessons from the last couple days. And I know this is fairly intense, that's why I've been kind of breaking it up in class a little bit as much as I can. Maybe telling stories or whatever, just to keep you guys focused on a fairly difficult concept. But anyways, let's get right to it. This is part 2, so here we go. So as you can look at this problem 6 that we may have done in class. Again, some classes I did, some I didn't. But anyways, notice guys, this is a quadratic, right? See the square right there? See that square right there on the parentheses? And of course, x squared is always going to be a quadratic. And you can see also that reflected in the picture. The shape of the parabola right here, right? Okay. So that being said, I want you to notice that this is vertex form as well. Vertex form, and you'll recognize it when you see the parentheses, okay? And what should I remind you of? Well, how do we graph vertex form is we make our table. And how do we make our tables? We first start whatever makes it equal 0. Because whatever makes that parentheses equal 0, guys, is our vertex. You will notice, watch this guys, that if I take that -4 with a -2 at the end of the equation, that is the vertex. See, the vertex, which shown in the graph, follow the green, is right there, is at -4, -2. And that's where the name vertex form came from. Okay? I also want you to notice, follow the gold, that this graph crosses at -3, 0 and -5, 0. Those are called our x-intercepts, right? Our x-intercepts. In other words, that's where they intercept the x-axis. You will also notice, follow the red guys, that if you take this graph on the right side, it goes up a very long way. And somewhere way up there is my y-intercept, where that graph is going to cross the y-axis. Okay? So we're going to figure out all these intercepts as well as do the graph. So let me go ahead and clean it up. You may want to pause the video if you want to take notes though. So go ahead and pause the video. Okay, that sure was getting a little messy there, so I want to clean it up here a little bit, guys. And so, how do we do the table? Well, once I know -4 made it equal 0, again, I just count up and down. See how I kept the numbers in order? -6, -5, -4, -3, -2. Got to keep the numbers in order. And then, of course, I went to my calculator. And if you look at my calculator here, guys, you'll notice I plugged in -6, I got 6. I plugged in -5, I got 0. I plugged in -4, I got -2. Okay. And you can see that's where I got those values. And then by symmetry, that has to be 0, right? Hopefully you remember symmetry. And that has to be 6 because it matches the other 6 there. And then it was just a matter of plotting the points. So hopefully there's no questions there. But now let's talk about the intercepts. First of all, guys, notice if we look at our table, we already have zeros in there, don't we? Whenever y equals 0, and at those two spots marked in red, guys, y equals 0, right? Those are your x-intercepts, and we already talked about it. -3 and -5, shown right there and there, are our x-intercepts. What about the y-intercept, though? Well, remember, guys, I'm actually going to plug in 0 for y, right? And then solve it. Sorry, that would be for x-intercepts. Sorry. When you plug in 0 for y, remember it's the x-intercepts. I'm actually going to plug in 0 for x. Sorry about that little misspeak there. And if you look right here in my calculator, guys, I did went ahead and plugged in 0 for x. So remember, when you plug in 0 for x, guys, you get the x-intercept. And notice I get a positive 30. What that means, guys, is on my graph, I would have to again come way up there to positive 30 for this side of the graph to actually cross the y-axis. Okay? And that's my y-intercept, and of course we already talked about the x-intercepts. So pause the video if you need to. Okay, the other thing I want to show you guys, if you look at my work down here, I actually set it equal to 0, y that is, and I was able to solve for x. So what I would like you to do, guys, is pause the video and study what I did here. Okay, so what did I do? Well, follow the red, guys. To get rid of -2, I went ahead and add 2 to both sides. That's where the 2 came from. To get rid of this 2, I went ahead and divided by 2, and 2 divided by 2 is 1. To get rid of the square, follow the green, I had to do a square root on both sides. And a square root of 1, you see, is positive or negative 1. And from there, I was able to -4 both sides to get rid of that +4 right there. And that's how I got, notice, the same exact answers, the same -3 and -5 as shown again in our table. But I just want to show you guys there's multiple ways to get the same result, and we need to practice those throughout our periods in the classroom over the next week or two. Okay, so pause the video one more time. I went ahead and I wanted to show you number 7 in case we didn't do that in class, guys. And I want you again, I'm going to assume that you know -1 makes it 0. That's why it's in the middle of the table. That's also my vertex shown right there. Follow the green. -1, -3. And again, you can see it in the equation as well. See the -1 and -3 up here, guys. And so, vertex form. I completed my table. I did my points. How did I complete the table? Well, again, keeping the numbers in order. I took my calculator. I plugged in -3, then -2, -1. I got these values to complete my table. Okay. I also want you to notice I plugged in 0 as well, because remember, if x equals 0, I get a y-intercept. Y-int for short. So notice my y-intercept is -2. And if you look at the graph, so again, I completed the table using the calculator. I graphed it. But also notice, guys, follow the yellow right there. Isn't that my y-intercept? Right there is -2. 0, -2 is my y-intercept. Also notice, follow the red, guys, doesn't the graph cross x right there, and actually somewhere right there? My graph is a little bit off-centered there, right? Should look more like that. Well, what about those two values? Well, first of all, guys, pause the video if you need to look at the table or the graph. Pause the video if you need to look at my calculator work. Note, guys, that I always use parentheses and I type in exactly like the equation says, and you got to do the same. Anytime we plug in numbers, use those parentheses correctly. Okay? And finally, guys, here is where, follow the red, I plugged in 0 for y. And again, how do I get rid of -3 with a +3? How do I get rid of the square right here? I did a square root on both sides, hence plus or minus square root of 3. How do I get rid of +1? I did a -1, so that's where -1 plus or minus square root of 3 is my answer. Again, I'm going to come back here, guys, but I want to show you on the calculator, I did -1 plus square root of 3. I also did -1 minus square root of 3. Here are my two answers, 0.73, -2.73. Pause the video if you need to look at that a little bit. But anyways, guys, to finish up here, notice that's where these two values came from the calculator. And let's make sure this makes sense. If we look at our graph, let me clean this up a little bit. Okay. Note that this graph actually crosses somewhere about right there, and that's my negative 2.73, okay? And notice, follow the red, it crossed over here, and that value there is my 0.73, 0.73, and those are my x-intercepts. So guys, this is definitely a video you need to study, take notes on. Any notes you take, guys, and churn in your next packet, I will give you a little extra credit for. If you're avid, of course, I hope you're taking notes anyways for your Cornell notes. Until next time, bye.